Gov and Law, Video 1 of Unit 2, 2.1, the First Amendment. The First Amendment reads that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Therefore, within the First Amendment, there are 5 particular sections: freedom of religion, of speech, of press, of assembly, and of petition. We will cover each individually in no particular order. Freedom of religion. There are 2 clauses or components of the freedom of religion. Those 2 clauses are the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause. The Establishment Clause more or less tells us that the national government, or the state governments, cannot establish a church. There must be a separation between church and state. Therefore, there is no official religion of the United States of America. The second portion of the freedom of religion, part of the First Amendment, is the Free Exercise Clause. The Free Exercise Clause constrains or restricts government from prohibiting individuals from practicing the religion of their choice. Therefore, in the United States, you have the freedom to practice whatever religion you'd like, whether that be an ancient religion that millions of people practice around the world, or that be your own religion that you begin in your home. Those 2 clauses cause tensions between one another quite often. One of those controversies is prayer in school. This has long been argued in several Supreme Court cases. So religion in schools. There are many specific cases which have dealt with religion as it affects public schools as they are government funded. In 2001, there was a court case, Zellman v. Simmons-Harris. In this court case, the City of Cleveland and the School District of Cleveland issued tuition vouchers for low-income students in their community. These vouchers were essentially payments for the students to choose alternative public and private institutions when the community schools felt that their children needs were not being met. Those tuition vouchers caused a lot of controversy within the city of Cleveland. Eventually, the case made it to the Supreme Court. The argument was that giving the school vouchers violated the Establishment Clause, as many of those vouchers went toward religious institutions. Actually, in the Cleveland case, 96% of those who received tuition vouchers used those tuition vouchers, that's state-funded or city-funded tax dollars, to attend religious community schools. The Supreme Court argued and determined that this voucher program did not establish a religion because it is the parents' choice to A, participate in the program, and B, choose the school of their liking, whether that be a public, private, religious, or non-religious community. Other key religious clause decisions. In reference to school prayer, there's been several cases. The Supreme Court has recently determined that schools cannot use school public address systems, such as the intercom system, nor can prayer be led or dictated by school officials, as they believe this would be establishing an official religion. Schools, furthermore, cannot ban the teaching of evolution. Evolution can be and must be included as one of the possible theories to explaining how human beings got to their current and present state. Freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is another important clause of the First Amendment outlined by our founding fathers in 1791. Freedom of speech dictates several different things. One of those important things is that the government cannot prior restrain unless it is in the interest of national security. So, for example, the government, including school communities, cannot restrain any individual from making a speech or any kind of symbolic speech unless they believe it is in the interest of their security to do so. An excellent example here is a few years ago when there was an earthquake in Haiti. Several celebrities got together to push for a large fundraising event on several major networks. Kanye West and Mike Myers were paired together to speak to the American public, and Kanye West went off on a very famous tirade against George Bush as he was then president, and he quoted that George Bush doesn't care about black people. Even though that caused a lot of controversy, Kanye West could not be charged with the crime or slander of George Bush because there was no prior restraint needed, because it was not in the interest of national security. It was quite embarrassing for the networks to have this occur on their television show. However, Kanye West could not be charged with a crime as it was not in the interest of national security. He was simply expressing his opinion about the President of the United States. Another part of speech is this idea of symbolic speech. Symbolic speech is often taken on in the idea of a t-shirt or an armband, such as these students here are displaying, or a tattoo or signs, etc. Symbolic speech has become a major component of Supreme Court cases in the last 50 years. Symbolic speech is a non-verbal expression of beliefs, but it is still considered speech. In 1968, there was a court case that came about because of controversy surrounding the Vietnam War. These two students here were students at a middle school and a high school in Des Moines, Iowa. They got together with a small group of other people and planned to protest truce in Vietnam by wearing these black armbands to school. School officials found out about their plans and told the students that if they wore the armbands, they would be removed from the school building. The students peaceably wore the armbands to school and were removed from the school building. The Supreme Court case came about because the school argued that it was a disruption to their learning environment. However, the Supreme Court ruled in Tinker's favor, stating that the school could not prove that the armbands were disruptive. Therefore, symbolic speech does stand if it is not disruptive to the learning environment. Other important cases in reference to symbolic speech. In commercial speech, such as in commercials, there has to be truth in advertising. If you've recently seen some of the Red Bull commercials that claim Red Bull can make you fly, there is a very clear statement at the bottom that that is not true, that that is just a use of advertising. There are several restrictions that have been put in place upon free speech. Recently, there was a court case involving a sign that said "Bong hits for Jesus," as you can see right here in this photograph. In 2006, Joseph Frederick held up this sign with several other students at a school-sponsored event. The school officials suspended him, claiming that he was promoting illegal drug use. The case made it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court determined that the school was right in suspending him and punishing him, as the school had a best interest in not promoting illegal drug use at school-sponsored events. So therefore, the decision was for Morse, who represents the school. Also, restrictions are limited on free speech if they meet what's called the clear and present danger test. If you are threatening the life of another person or in the interest of national security, that would not be considered a protected form of speech. For example, someone going to an airport and threatening the airport safety would not be protected under free speech, as it presents a clear and present danger to other passengers. Furthermore, obscene gestures and obscene speech is considered restriction, as it does disrupt the safety and the wellness of other citizens. Slander is false statements in the company of others. Many news anchors on entertainment shows often get charged with slander as they make false statements or rumored statements about celebrities on a news show. Freedom of the press. Freedom of the press is another component of the First Amendment. Freedom of the press covers several different things. However, libel is not protected. Libel is when you write something down and you are intending to defame or disrupt someone's character. So in celebrity magazines, oftentimes there are things that are not true in those magazines, and oftentimes those celebrities or their agents or their other interests will sue on the case of libel, as libel is not a protected form of freedom of the press. Gag orders, so those orders that restrict what you are able to print, are not constitutional as long as it is not in the interest of national security, nor does it threaten another person's life. The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, monitors freedom of the press and freedom of speech by rating TVs, films, and video games, etc. Finally, freedom of assembly and of petition. So freedom of assembly is often used when we reference extremist groups such as neo-Nazis or Hell's Angels or other controversial groups. Groups with appropriate permits can assemble according to local laws. Recently, there has been upset in several communities as there has been neo-Nazis or National Socialist Movement rallies in their communities. However, as long as those groups apply for the appropriate permits and follow the letter of the law, they can be allowed to assemble regardless of their personal beliefs. Finally, you do have the right to petition your government. Signatures force, sorry for the spelling errors there, signatures that force the government to act must be followed by the government if they meet a certain threshold of signature requirements. In conclusion, the First Amendment includes 5 different components. These 5 different components are each in and of themselves very important. The Founding Fathers put these 5 first in the Bill of Rights, as they deemed these rights very important to every single American. Practicing your freedom of speech, press, religion, assembly, and petition.